The room is tense. Camera flashes go off. Reporters whisper among themselves. The VA secretary walks in, his face cold, unreadable. He takes his seat, adjusts the microphone, and scans the room. His eyes land on Kaitlan Collins, already poised with her notepad, waiting to strike. The briefing is live. Millions are watching. Across the country, a disabled veteran sits in his small living room, remote in hand. The volume is up. He leans forward, his expression tight. He has seen this before. Another official dragged in front of the press. Another battle where veterans become nothing more than a talking point. His grip tightens. The secretary clears his throat, but before he can speak, Collins leans in, voice sharp. Mr. Secretary, let us start with the leaked chat. How can the public trust this administration when cabinet members discuss classified matters on unsecured platforms? A pause. The air in the room shifts. The secretary tilts his head slightly, smirks, and exhales. Before we dive in, let me ask you, who do you think truly stands for our veterans? The media or those making the hard decisions? Collins does not flinch. This is not about veterans. This is about national security. The secretary leans forward. That is where you are wrong. Every decision we make affects them. While you chase headlines, we fix a system that has failed for years. The veteran watching sighs. He has heard it all before. But this time, something feels different. The secretary is not backing down. Collins does not hesitate. She leans in, her voice sharp. The leaked chat shows reckless behavior. This is not just poor judgment. It puts national security at risk. How can veterans trust leadership that does not even protect classified discussions? The secretary does not blink. He folds his hands, his voice steady. If you cared this much about veterans as you do about leaks, maybe they would trust the media. A few reporters exchange glances. Collins narrows her eyes. This is about accountability. You are deflecting. The secretary leans back slightly, shaking his head. No, I am refocusing. Accountability? Where was it when veterans waited months for care? Where was it when hospitals, under previous administrations, let them die in waiting rooms? You were not outraged then. Collins does not back down. Are you saying this administration is faultless? That there have been no failures under your watch? The secretary's jaw tightens. I am saying the difference is, we are fixing them. You want to talk failures? Let us talk about the VA scandals you ignored. The veterans who suffered while your network chased ratings. The tension in the room thickens. The cameras capture every twitch, every glance. Collins flips her notepad. Speaking of failures, under your leadership, the VA has faced multiple controversies. Mismanaged contracts, poor communication, veterans struggling to get benefits. What do you say to them? The secretary's voice hardens. I say this. Where was this outrage when veteran suicides hit record highs under the last administration? Where was CNN when hospitals were caught falsifying wait times? I will tell you where. You were busy covering celebrity gossip and partisan drama. Collins tightens her grip on her pen. So, you deny that mistakes were made. I deny that you actually care about fixing them. The room buzzes. Journalists shift in their seats. Someone clears their throat. Collins pushes forward. The problem is not just past leadership. It is this administration's secrecy. These leaks prove there is something to hide. The secretary's lips press into a thin line. You call it secrecy. I call it protecting the people who serve this country. You take a leaked chat and twist it into a scandal while ignoring the real issue, veterans being failed for decades. A voice in the back shouts, "Answer the question." The secretary turns toward the voice. The question is flawed. The real question is, why does the media only investigate when it fits their agenda? Murmurs spread. The cameras stay locked on the stage. Collins straightens her posture. It is not about an agenda. It is about transparency. The secretary shakes his head again. No, it is about control. You twist every narrative to fit a political attack. Meanwhile, we are actually fixing the system. Collins exhales, trying to regain control. So, you claim this administration has done more for veterans than any before it? A small smirk appears on the secretary's face. Not a claim. A fact. Look up the numbers. More funding. More accountability. More access to care. That is what veterans deserve, not another media circus. The tension peaks. Reporters scribble notes. Cameras zoom in. Collins tightens her jaw. She knows the fight is far from over. Collins exhales, regaining her focus. She knows she is losing ground. The room is not reacting the way she expected. So she shifts tactics. Let us talk about the VA job cuts. The administration claims this will improve services, but in reality, you are slashing thousands of jobs. How is that not abandoning veterans? The secretary's expression does not change. His tone is firm. We are cutting bureaucracy, not care. The wasteful spending you protect is what is failing veterans. Collins leans in. So, firing thousands of employees is helping veterans? The secretary nods. Let me tell you about Jake. He is a Marine. Served 2 tours. Came home and needed help. PTSD. Chronic pain. You know how long he waited for an appointment? 8 months. 8 months of ignored calls. 8 months of VA employees shuffling paperwork instead of helping him. The room is silent. Even Collins hesitates. The secretary continues. That delay was not because of a lack of resources. It was because of a system bloated with useless administrative positions. Middle managers who had nothing but delays. We cut that dead weight. Now, Jake gets the care he needs, on time. Collins crosses her arms. So, you claim these cuts will fix everything? The secretary smirks. Not everything, but they will fix the part no one wants to talk about, the corruption inside the VA. He reaches into his folder and pulls out a document. This is a confidential report on mismanagement at VA hospitals. Millions wasted. Patients neglected. And do you know what else? CNN knew about this. Murmurs spread through the room. Collins straightens in her chair. That is a serious accusation. The secretary holds up the report. It is not an accusation. It is a fact. While your network ran stories about political drama, veterans were suffering, and you ignored it. Collins' grip on her pen tightens. We report on veteran issues all the time. The secretary tilts his head. Do you? Because I see hours of coverage on leaks, but nothing about the veterans who died waiting for care. Collins blinks. She was not expecting this. The secretary leans forward. His voice is lower now, deliberate. So tell me, Miss Collins, do you want better care for veterans, or just another headline? A pause. The tension is thick. Collins hesitates for just a second, but it is enough. The room knows she does not have an answer. Collins sits up straighter, her voice measured but urgent. Let us talk about transparency. The American people have a right to know what happens behind closed doors. Does this administration believe it is above oversight? The secretary does not react immediately. He lets the silence stretch. Then he leans forward, voice calm but sharp. Transparency. That is an interesting word coming from the media. Collins tilts her head slightly. Are you suggesting the press should not hold the government accountable? The secretary exhales through his nose, almost amused. I am suggesting that accountability should go both ways. You defend leaks when they fit your narrative, but when they expose the truth about your own side, suddenly it is reckless. Collins shakes her head. That is not what this is about. The secretary smirks. No. Then let us test that theory. He reaches into his folder, pulling out another document. The tension in the room thickens. This is an internal CNN report. It details how your network buried a story on VA failures. A whistleblower came forward, showing how veterans were ignored, how funding was misused. But instead of reporting it, you let it disappear. The room shifts. A few journalists glance at each other. Collins grips her pen tighter. That is not verified. The secretary nods. Of course not, because verifying it would mean exposing your own hypocrisy. Funny how leaks only bother you when they expose the truth about your own side. A long silence. Cameras zoom in. Collins looks down at her notes, but does not speak. Across the country, the veteran watching the broadcast sits back in his chair. For the first time in years, he feels like someone is actually fighting for him. He nods slowly. the frustration in his chest replaced with something else. Relief. Collins shifts in her seat, forcing a tight smile. She clears her throat, trying to regain control. Well, moving on. But the damage is done. The room feels it. The hesitation in her voice. The way she avoids eye contact. She is looking for an escape. The secretary, on the other hand, does not need one. He calmly gathers his papers, adjusting them neatly. Then, without another word, he stands. The cameras follow as he turns toward the exit, walking with purpose. No rush. No panic. Just quiet confidence. The reporters left behind whisper among themselves. A few tap away at their phones, already preparing their next headlines. Within hours, CNN airs a segment. They twist the story, claiming they exposed corruption and held the administration accountable. But viewers are not fooled. They saw what really happened. Cut back to the veteran's living room. He watches in silence as the broadcast ends. For the first time in years, he feels heard, understood. Someone in power is finally fighting for him. He exhales, a small smile forming. He reaches for the remote, clicking off the TV. No more frustration. No more doubt. Just a quiet sense of relief. The screen fades to black as one final question lingers. Do you see how the game is played? Who do you really trust with the truth?